and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 136th take, live from the HF Barcelona studios of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Bear Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. It's going to be an amazing show. It took us 2 times to start this show, so it's got to be incredible. I'm so excited to have you on tonight, and I'm so excited to have our guests. But before we get to proper introductions to our guests of honor, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible, and that, of course, is our sponsors. Tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate announced the release of the Acid 20 Bronxilla, an exclusive to Alliance Cigar Company. Bronxilla was announced by Jonathan Drew on Drew Estate's Freestyle Live, their quarterly Facebook program, just late last month that showcases upcoming swag and product releases. In 2019, Drew Estate has celebrated an important milestone for Drew Estate with the global introduction of the chromed out smash hit Acid 20 anniversary. The celebratory line expanded in early 2020 with the Toro and Robusto Tubo line, and they now introduced the Acid 20 Bronxilla as an Ecuadorian Connecticut shade offering exclusively sold through Alliance Cigar Company, wrapped in a creamy, smooth Connecticut shade cover leaf over Indonesian binder and Nicaraguan fillers. Bronxilla is packed with a bold flavor and aroma. Each 5x54 Robusto is enveloped in a blinged out chrome foil and is packaged in 20-count boxes emblazoned with the iconic Acid 20 logo. So check out your Drew Diplomat retailers. Actually, excuse me, check out Alliance Cigar Company today if you want to get your hands on the Bronxilla Acid 20. And of course, our show is also sponsored by Oveja Negra Brands, 4 unique companies who share a passion to provide innovative cigars for the next generation of cigar enthusiasts. Black Label Trading Company, Blackwork Studio, Dissident, and Amelia are combining premium tobacco with an artisanal touch. Oveja Negra, where art and tobacco collide. Join the flock and visit OvejaNegraCigars.com to learn more. So welcome to our 136th take. It took us 2 times to get this started. So you know it's going to be special. I already said that, but I'm going to say it again. Why? Because we're going to do everything double tonight. Hopefully not. Our guest may be suffering from insomnia, but he does need to get some rest. So without further ado, tonight's guest is sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Mr. Robert Holt of Southern Draw. Robert, how you doing tonight?
Doing well. Thank you, brother, for having me. I appreciate everybody spending their Sunday evening. We got NFL back, but they're here live with us, watching while we smoke. We talk about things that have happened, things to come, you know, and this is the new norm, right? We get together virtually, but it's priceless. This is the things that maybe we took for granted in the past, Bear. So I'm glad that the approach that you've taken and other members of the media over the last 4 or 5 years aggressively has now panned out to be the preferred channel for us to interact and spend time together and share news and information in our lives in general. So thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Robert. As many of our audience knows, you were actually a previous guest on my show beforehand, so it has been quite a while since I've had the opportunity to speak with you formally on this show. But yeah, it's been a hot minute, and we're excited to have you back. Excited to kind of reflect on tonight's subject, which we'll be getting into here in a little bit. But just good to see you again, and thank you for joining me. I'm really excited to sit down, smoke this particular cigar with you. So I would like to start. I know that you can't really discuss too much of what you're smoking, but why don't you share with your audience as much, or with our audience as much as possible of what you're partaking in tonight, and I'll share mine.
I'm on the final third. I'm on the back stretch of a test sample, and most people know that we do quite a few retail exclusives each year. And this is one of those that is going to be announced in the next 3 or 4 weeks with one of our retail partners. And I tend to, when we get the cigars in from the factory, like we just did from Nicaragua and AJ Fernandez Cigar Company, I tend to go back to the original blend samples and then test those against the production samples before we deliver those. And that's where we're at tonight. I'm going to finish this up, and then I'm going to go to my trusty Sunday night Lancero collection. And we'll get back into the core stuff of Southern Draw. But we're on the test phase right now, making sure what we're delivering is what we promised.
Well, that's fantastic to hear about. You know, not to put you too much on the spot, Robert, because I know you said you're still working on it. But can you announce who you're partnering with at least on that, or is that a little bit in the dark as well?
Yeah, it's a little in the dark. You know, it's here's the thing: you guys will know about it and be able to share it before it even hits the shelves, right? So in the next couple of weeks, we're waiting on the final press release, the final information, the launch dates. And given where we are as an industry, exactly how the consumers are going to be able to acquire that cigar if they don't have access to go into the stores. Is it going to be delivered? Is it going to be online? What channels are they going to use? And that's really what we're trying to focus on over the next couple of weeks. Send out the press. Let's share the message. Let's share the story. But most importantly, let's tell the consumers how they can efficiently get it in their hands and smoke it with us.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we are all aflutter looking forward to that. As you know, Robert, we were talking about this before we went live, the first and the second time as well. I the cigar that I decided to light up and kick our night off with is the Southern Draw Desert Rose, which and again, I can't, if I haven't told you before tonight, Robert, I definitely wanted to make this at least public as well. Like, just how incredible I think this is your finest work, and that's saying something, because I think your cigars are phenomenal, and I think this is the finest cigar that bears the Southern Draw name. I think it's absolutely sensational. It is everything a mild cigar wants to be. It has its mild flavor, but it's full flavored, mild bodied. I misspoke there a second ago. It's mild bodied, but it's full flavored. There's so much nuance to it. It's so enjoyable. It's technically sound, perfect draw every time. And everyone, my audience knows, Robert, how picky I am when it comes to a Torpedo and a Bellicoso. I just don't like them, really. Right. But this is just absolutely stellar. And I'm excited to light this up with you again. And I am disappointed that this is my last one, so I'll need to figure out what to do after this. But my last Desert Rose, rather, not my last cigar tonight. I've got a few more here lined up. But you alluded to, I don't know if we wanted to get into this now, Robert, but you alluded to that there might be something else coming with Desert Rose that you wanted to talk about, or at least something on the subject of it.
Yeah, and first of all, thank you for the accolades on that cigar. Obviously, the Rose of Sharon as a core line has done tremendously well for us. Most of the audience know the story about my wife and her role in the company and our 20-plus years together and this journey that we're taking together. But, you know, taking a blend that can truly capture the personality and characteristics of an individual is it's challenging, and I think it was executed perfectly. Not to say the cigar itself or the blend itself was perfect, but the encapsulation of the personality and the character of Sharon, as I know her for 24 years, really served us well with that cigar. From the colors of the bands to the blends to the wrappers to the fillers, you know, even the binder, everything had to do with trying to recreate a personality so that when you smoke it, you know who this is. Now, that being said, we do believe that the Bellicosos, Perfectos are more difficult, much like a Lancero, much more difficult to get a consistent, sustainable product out when you intend to put it into full production. So the beauty of our Bellicoso line each year is typically we only release one Bellicoso a year. It's meant to be a variation or a derivative of the original blend, a little tweaking of the ratios. And in this case, that particular cigar has a little heavier wrapper on it than the original Rose of Sharon. And it has a little extra dose of Ligero, moving it up to about 50% in the filler combination. So it's done well for us. The first bit of news, I think, is the Desert Rose 10-count Mazos that were released at PCA last July are sold out globally. I think we produced somewhere around 80,000 of those, but those 10 counts have been distributed, and there's probably a few on a few shelves, but I personally don't even have one. But the good news is somewhere around the middle of October, that particular cigar will be delivered to our retailers in our standard 20-count boxes and bundles.
Ooh, that is exciting.
Full production cigar in the Rose of Sharon line as an extension for the future. Now, that being said, I won't go into great detail, but I can assure everyone that part of our fall release collection, we will see a new member of the Southern Draw family coming out in the Desert Rose a cloak, if you will. There's something special coming, something that was planned well in advance, but ultimately, with the year that we've all had, we've delayed that release for this reason. And it's important to understand that without trade shows, without conventions, without major sales events where our family, the media, the retailers, distributors can't come together and celebrate, it's really tough to launch a new product and ask everybody to support it. So we've really had to pull back on that, focus on our inventory, focus on offering discounts to our retailers, keep their doors open, give them nice margins. But a little carrot, if you will, is somewhere in the next 30, 45 days, we will see the press release come out, and we will see a line extension come out of the Desert Rose that we're excited to share. That's
fantastic. So when you say within the Southern Draw family, I'm assuming you're kind of going along the same lines of like say, for example, the Cedrus Hogan, which was a Vitola that was specifically named after your good friends, or what you would call the Southern Draw family, the Hogans. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
That's correct. That's correct.
Awesome. Well, really excited to see that. I'm super excited for it, considering my affinity for this blend, Robert. But again, hats off to you all and your team and your family for putting this together, because it is truly your finest work. I'll just say that again. So let's talk. You mentioned a little bit going on right there. So it was like you're reading my notes there, Robert. You got a perfect segue going on. So you kind of alluding to a little bit what was kind of going on and why you just delayed on some of your projects because of COVID, obviously. So what have you and Southern Draw been up to during all of this this crazy time? We keep saying it, this unprecedented time. We're just going to keep hammering that word into oblivion.
And that it is, and I don't think the end is in sight. I think, we came out of the gate at TPE as a family. We were able, not everybody, all the retailers and all the media don't go to TPA and cover to the extent of PCA or IPCPR historically, but we had a great show, in January, and we had most of the family there in the booth with us. We did a shared booth, and we were able to launch the Cedrus Lancero. But COVID snuck up, 45 days later. We're right in the middle of getting in the vehicle getting in the vehicle on the way to the airport to launch our big push of spring 2020 to do our major sales events. Again, on an average, I personally do over 100 events a year. Typically 20 or 30 of those Sharon and the other family members get to participate, but we rely, Bear, on those opportunities to bring attention to share some level of exclusivity with media members, kind of spread it out so not everybody gets just a blast of a PR. But we're learning through our interaction with the media over the last 6 years, really where the spot is for most media members that smoke cigars, whether they like big ring gauge or small ring gauge, whether they have an affinity or a palate really for mild or medium body cigars, medium to full, rip your face off cigars, whether they like to support limited editions and retail exclusives, or they don't really have the time to do it. Trying to feel the pulse of how we work together with the media and the family, it put us for a loop, right? We rely heavily on that for new launches, but more importantly, we rely on those trade shows and conventions and major, sales events to launch new products and to spend time with our customers and our retail staff. You get to spend a lot of time with buyers in this industry, but you don't get to spend a lot of time with the staff that actually represents and sells your cigars every day unless you have the time and you make the decision to go into the shops and spend it. So this has really thrown us for a loop. Now, I can tell you, as a small family-owned business, we don't have a lot of staff. Yes, we have a few brokers, and most it's family, family that plays every role in this. We were concerned that if any of us got sick, if any of us were susceptible to COVID, which again, I think it's evolving as far as our knowledge is, that it could really be the end of Southern Draw. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of brands and a lot of businesses in general, that if the principals that are responsible for the day-to-day operations go down, whether they heal or don't heal, whether they get treatment or not, it could really decimate a business. So we were real cautious. So we left around March 1st. We took our little RV and we went to a remote site and said, we're going to self-quarantine. We're going to set up the office and, 200 square feet, Sharon and I, computers, laptops, printers, scanners, and iPad, and just said, we're going to live virtually. We're going to work the phones. We're going to remind everybody that we still love you, that we still want to be with you, that when this is over, we're going to return to normal. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't become obsolete. You know, when you're so active and all of a sudden you're not active, you're not in shops, it's easy to be forgotten in our mind. Whether that's true or not, Bear, we don't know. But we wanted to make sure that we were as efficient as possible. And the beauty of it is, together with AJ Fernandez and Tobaccos Mundial there in Fort Worth, we were able to bring in a tremendous amount of product in Q1. So, you know, bringing in an extra 500,750,000 cigars. What we decided to do to help everybody get through this is each month try to do a very aggressive discount program to our current retailers, and really use that time to tell a story about that particular brand, get those in the hands of those shops. You know, if they chose to start doing online or curbside service or delivery service, whatever way they saw fit, we kind of relaxed all rules and regulations and said, this is about responding to the current economic and travel restrictions in this country. And at the end of the day, you need to do that, and we're here to support it in any way. And I think it turned out well for us that our margins will reflect very poorly for the year. I mean, you're aggressive, you know, we're still paying commissions and we're doing 20-25% discounts. But the reality of it is, it's what little we could do with the product that we had available to keep, you know, the orders and the process continuing, but the interaction, which was really the key there.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has presented its own challenges for everyone that I've spoken to, from the small like yourself to some of the you know, to some of the larger companies. And Robert, I'm getting a little funny echo in my ear. I just want to make sure you can hear me clearly. Can you hear me okay?
You're very clear on this side. Okay,
great. And my audience, if you could chat away a little bit and just let me know if I'm good to go on that. I'm just getting a little funny sound in my ear. I just want to make sure that that's on my end and it's not affecting the quality of the show here. So if y'all could let me know, I'd really appreciate it. But like you said, Robert, I think it's affected a lot of different peoples in a lot of different ways. And it was interesting to me because I remember you actually announced that you were suspending, canceling, postponing, whatever the word you want to tack onto it, all in-person cigar events for the remainder of 2020. And that was made, relatively speaking, considering the context of where we are now in the COVID era. It was made pretty early on, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was made in May, and correct me if I'm wrong there, Robert.
That's correct.
Why was it so important for you to make such a conservative step for? I think you just talked about it a little bit, but I'm just wanting to get a little bit more detail from you on why it was so important for you to make such a conservative decision regarding your company.
Well, I think there's really 4 major factors there, and the first being the safety and welfare of our family, my wife and I, and our family that we interact with, and the people that we have to interact with on a daily basis for Southern Draw. We're relatively healthy people. That doesn't mean everybody we interact with is. And I think to be susceptible to COVID with the unknowns that were out there, and to also have a potential of being a carrier and spreading something to someone that doesn't have the same immunosystem, or doesn't have access to healthcare and things. Small businesses, not everybody has health insurance, right? So,
right.
A, we protect ourselves and protect the people we interact with. B, I think it's a sense of fairness, right? If you're going to miss events in April and May and March, and in this case, at that point, we had missed like 37 events coming into May. That seems like a lot, but we usually have a very aggressive spring schedule.
Right.
How do you say so sorry, but you anticipate that the June and July and August, you know, even with the trade show not being canceled at the time, how are you going to be fair to everyone and equitable without canceling all the in-person events and making that decision early? And I think C, kind of standing up and saying, we've made this decision. We believe it's the right decision. It hurts because we know how active we are. We know how many events we try to attend each year. But we would hope that other brands and other retailers understood that it was okay. It was okay that we do look forward to your annual events. And we look forward to the small events and the big events. But in in that with the idea of safety for everyone, we think it's good for you to go ahead and feel comfortable of canceling your events too. And then the fourth point really is events take a lot of planning. They take a lot of financial commitment and time, especially if you're launching a new cigar, a new exclusive, or a line extension. You're building swag. You're spending time, money, and resources to go celebrate something that may or may not happen. And right now, my advice to everyone of our retailers, especially the family-owned, was cash is king, right? So let's use our cash to produce more core products, keeps the factory working. Let's give you a discount for those core products that we have. You keep them on your shelves. You keep them distributed the best way you can. And let's not worry about events right now. So it's all those factors that, believe me, if it was up to me, I wouldn't have made the decision. I would have made the wrong decision. Sharon was really pressuring me to say, make the right decision, make it early, stand by that decision. And no matter how tempted you are, because this hot area in Texas has really high cases, but New England is fine. We really wanted to go to New England and do our rounds in Connecticut and Rhode Island and Mass and New Hampshire. Great events, great market, great representation. But it's not fair to California, and it's not fair to Texas. It's not fair to Florida. So we got to be fair. We got to be safe. And, we've got to keep the core products on the shelves if possible if we're going to all survive this. So it was all those factors.
Awesome. I want to put a pin in this point and go off the conversation because it's going to kind of go, it's going to tie into our major point. But I wanted to, before we kind of kicked into our major point, I did want to, again, take the opportunity for having you on the show publicly to thank you for a wonderful gift that you gave me. So as our audience knows, almost a year ago, so, almost a year ago in October of 19, before the world just decided to just upend itself, into craziness, my wife and I welcomed in our second son, whom we named Jacob, and I remember discussing obviously with you because I was one of my favorite moments at the IPCPR, now PCA trade show from last year was your announcement, the press junket you held inside your booth. Where you announced the release of this cigar, the Jacob's Ladder Brimstone. And it was just a beautiful moment. You had your son there, who the cigar is named after, Ethan Jacob. And it was just a really, as a father and a father of now two sons, it was a really nice moment for me to kind of share that with you and Sharon. And so I was, obviously sharing this back with you. And you gifted me an amazing gift. You sent me a box of these, so which I still have a few left, and so I wanted to thank you for the kindness that you bestowed upon me when we welcomed in our second child. That was very, very, very thoughtful of you.
Oh, that was our honor. Again, the fact that our son Ethan Jacob was able to participate, but he's been to the factory. He's worked. He has a passion for the people and the art. And, that story of Jacob's Ladder going into the book of Genesis, and I'll say this, not everybody's biblical or religious in this sense, but we're very faithful people. And Ethan was named for Jacob in the Bible, and really understanding the content or the context around his name as the patriarch in the Bible, and the inherent responsibilities bestowed upon him to be this big, strong, bold ruler, and the challenges that he had in fulfilling his role and obligation. And it's something that Sharon and I have many times talked to Ethan about from the moment he was born until, if you saw him today, he's about 6'4", 250 pounds. Much like the blend, we say it all the time. It was his moniker. The Jacob's Ladder is bold but approachable. He's a very bold person. He's a great leader, but he understands he has responsibility to his fellow man. And he's been graced he's been given grace to have a personality and a care for a young man to really love people and to love serve people. So I tell you what, having the responsibility of that name has a big impact on him, I think. And I think I've learned a lot by watching him. And quite honestly, he's the one that came forward and said, hey, the Jacob's Ladder's been great. It's selling like hotcakes, but we need to step it up a little bit. And I think this derivative known as the Brimstone with the three Lajeros, not all powerful Lajeros, but three Lajeros. We need to look to expand that, continue his story. So that being said, in fall of 2020, we will see an expansion of that particular line as well, based on his advice and feedback and desire to see that line grow and to continue to share that message about who he is and what he means to us. And of course, you've got your own Jacob now.
I do indeed, and he is also named after. He's also named after the Jacob in the Bible as well. So we went biblical for both of our sons' names too. So really a beautiful story, and really excited to see him as he continues to blossom in his role with you all at the company and everything. So we're really expecting good things from him, and really excited to see where that goes. And that takes us into tonight's major point. So tonight's major point is always brought to you by Wood Butcher Maine, in introducing durable and attractive wooden creations to your kitchen, backyard grill, and home using native Maine wood and other exotic wood species. Wood Butcher Maine's products include butcher box, cutting boards, coasters, grill grate cleaners, and the ELOSOFUMAR favorite, the red oak cigar ashtray and cocktail coaster, plus many more. So check out the Wood Butcher Maine's .com for the current collection. The Wood Butcher Maine team's passion for food, the Pine Tree State, and craftsmanship of the highest quality show in absolutely every piece. So again, visit woodbutchermaine.com. Yes, that's woodbutchermaine.com to explore the current collection. So that is tonight's major point. As we kind of go into it, everyone, I wanted to take a look at what we now are into our 6th year of Southern Draw. So we're heading into what I am calling the second lustrum. And the reason why I'm using the word first lustrum, of course, for fans of Southern Draw, is they know that you had your 5th anniversary cigar was named the Kudzu Lustrum. And so I kind of wanted to take a look at, reflect on the first 5 years, and then kind of go and explore what the vision is for the next lustrum. Is kind of where we're going. And you and I talked about this before the show, Robert. So really excited to do that. So I kind of want to bounce around a timeline yet. And you mentioned something in the previous segment there that I wanted to kind of bring in and tie in here. And you mentioned how you and Sharon have made this decision to be really conservative with what was going on with COVID, and really kind of take a step back. And this is not the first time that Southern Draw has done this. So Southern Draw opted in I believe it was 2016 to not attend the trade show, which at the time, ironically, there's a lot, with 2020 being what it is. But at the time, missing a trade show was a very big deal, and it put a lot of questions and a lot of doubt, and there was certainly a lot of intrigue around that decision. And then you came back with a mighty fury the next few years, and have done incredibly good things. So you've pumped the brakes historically in your company in your very short time already, and it proved to be a success. So my question is do you feel that that's kind of what you're anticipating this time around as well? That's the goal?
I don't know if it's an anticipation, but it's a necessary step. If you go back to the trade show 2016, May of that year, we were all hit with the FDA deeming regulations. Everybody dealt with it differently, I think. For us, we looked at it as the defining moment of our future, whether we were going to exist or not exist. And following to the letter of our understanding of those deeming regs was we needed to produce, we needed to package, we needed to put those UPCs, we needed to import, we needed to pay S-chip, we needed to get cigars in this country, and then make that minimal commercial effort, which we did very quietly, I think. But I think that May to August timeframe demanded our attention and our resources to be redirected. And the gift of that was our partners agreed to do that with us, to really, even in the face of their own crisis, of their own business, of their own factories and their own brands. I said, our vision is to produce everything we have in the blend book, in the sizes and the package options, and give ourselves a lot of toys to play with in the future. If in fact, these regulations go into effect, we need to have more than just the few cigars we have on the market. So, we got to go to 2017 and really commercialize in a big way our 2016 and our 2017 launches, which were, again, the Rose Sharon and the Jacob's Ladder. So Southern Draw started right down the middle with our execution in the Firethorn and the Kudzu, and then we dropped one end of the spectrum being the Rose and the opposite end of the spectrum being the Jacobs. But it was, I think, a well thought out plan. But in the end, it came down to following the letter of our understanding of the regulations and making sure that we had a future, and more importantly, getting our family and our partners in the packaging, Cigar Rings and Sancho and Alberto, from AJ Fernandez back in those days, Ricky, everybody that looked at our vision and said, we got to help these guys out. Otherwise, we're just a brand that lasted a few years and disappeared. So by the grace of God and a lot of hard work, it turned out okay for us now. But Barry, I think the most important thing we all learn in life is not all steps go up, right? Sometimes you got to take a step down and walk around to avoid an obstacle. You can't just continue the climb. It rarely happens. And there are brands in this industry that have done that, just continued that climb. But for us, we had to go back and reassess what's important, because we're a mission first company, and we're a family the family-owned company that a lot of people in our family have experience with big brands that started very small in the liquor and the beer brewery industry. Others come from military service, of course. Others come from corporate telecom, corporate world. But at the end of the day, if you put all the in accounting and finance and CPAs, at the end of the day, let's get together and have a discussion and say, these are the options we have. This is what I believe as the face of the company. But give me your feedback and tell me if you see a hole in our concept here. So, the 2020 decision was very much the same, which is we could keep our foot on the gas. We can try to wear masks. We can try to get in with all these people, but the risk is very high. The smart thing to do is kind of pull back a little bit. And I'll tell you, it has been hard to watch all the new releases come out from quote unquote competitors. Most of them are friends. But it's exciting. We like to see, especially when we're at home and we're on our patio and people are smoking more cigars probably than ever because they can't go anywhere. We wanted to be part of that moment. We wanted to be able to share and send those press releases out. So we've been envious, maybe is to use the right word, of everything coming out. But for our brand and for our family, the right thing for us to do was just to pull back, because in the end, if we can't have our family and we can't have the media and we can't have our retailers with us to launch something new, what is the purpose of launching something new? And then asking the retailers to support it like it's the greatest thing in the world. So the only way to tell the story is to share the cigar. So I think this delay, this pause is the right thing for us. We think that fall 2020 is going to reveal most of the things that we had planned for this year. However, we are going to pull back on a new core line that was really a lot of time and money and effort went into it, but we're going to wait and hold that to 2021. But we've got some fun things, and we've made sure that the retail exclusives with the retailers that have invested money in the last 2 or 3 years trying to come out with a new Southern Draw product for them and for their consumer, that we get those out as a priority. So the retail exclusives have got to come out first as a priority. And then we're going to add some line extensions and some fun things on behalf of Southern Draw at here in this last 3 months of the year.
Well, fantastic. That's good to hear. And I'm certainly hoping that it works out exactly the way that you guys have it envisioned. So we're going to be talking about it. So I know that you're about to light up a Lancero, and Sean Miles just poked his head in. Sean is one of my most faithful audience members. Him and Jay Davis, Jay pretty well.
Hey, brother Dave, the Davis boys.
Yeah, so Jay said he was a big fan of the Cedrus Lancero that you mentioned earlier, and Sean is the king of the Lanceros. Him and I are what we call Team Lancero, the Lancero Legion, or whatever. We go toe to toe with Coop all the time, who's a big Gordo fan. So, really excited to see you light up one of those. But let's go about talking about this Lustrum thing. And when I say this Lustrum thing, the reason why I'm incorporating the name that you gave your 5th anniversary cigar into tonight's theme was I literally was like a giddy school child when I saw the name of the cigar, because it took me back, and I just happened to be standing next to your good friend and family member Phil Hogan in the booth last year. And I said, I said, Lustrum, man, I haven't heard that, and I've only seen it used by John Wayne when he was playing the Rooster Cogburn character in the sequel to True Grit, Rooster Cogburn, and how that's like the word that he uses continuously throughout the film. And it was, and Phil and I had a moment together where we just basically for 15 minutes just exchanged stories about how much we love John Wayne and which movies we like best. And it was just a really fun moment. So it was really cool that you used the term, because it spawned that a great conversation that I had with your good friend Phil. So my again, my intent here is to kind of look back on the first 5 years, and we kind of did a little bit of exploring there with that last question when you pumped the brakes in 2016, and again, hoping that again proves successful for you with this pause as well. But I kind of wanted to go back to the very beginning of your intent. You said you're a company of mission, and this has always been Southern Draw's philosophy. Is you've been very heavy into charities. You donate a lot of time and a lot of the resources that have gained by Southern Draw into several charities. How many? I mean, if it's impossible to quantify, Robert, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but how many charities is Southern Draw specifically involved with?
Well, and we typically, the short answer, we typically rotate charities on an annual basis. Based on kind of a family committee, especially when it comes to the military charities. But, so what we do is we try to choose one core charity domestically each year through the Ignite program. We've done Cigars for Warriors, Navy SEAL Foundation, which given this year's challenges, we decided to expand the Navy SEAL Foundation charity into the second year. Again, aforementioned Phil Hogan, Brother Daniel Peterson, both retired Navy Southern Draw family members. We're honored. It's a great charity. We could get into that. And then, of course, the 300 Hands is 100% Nicaraguan charity, where that line of value line of cigars and the 3 blends and the 5 sizes, 100% of the profits that we generate from that go back to those Nicaraguan charities. So we don't do, and of course, anytime our retailers have a charity and when we do events with them, a lot of it is first responders, of course. A lot of times it's, local shelters or it's local people that have had a emergency or a surgery or something in their family where they really need some help. We're always glad to jump in, but we don't call those our charities. We just ask the family and the reps to support those charities at the local level whenever they can possible. As a matter of fact, we really, if we shared the message that we want to our brokers and reps, is every time you do an event, we would like you to work with that local retail shop to find a charity. Let's bring attention to the charity. Let's get people to visit their sites and their social media, read their mission statement, find out what their needs are, and let's try to bring some awareness, first of all, and then let's find a way together between us and the retailer and the consumers to quantifiably bring some donations or some monetary instruments in there that can help them achieve their own objectives. But for us, Ignite being the domestic charity side, it's not limited to military, but to this day, because we have so many military members in our family, we would like to see each one of them be able to select a military-oriented charity as a family that we can support. So we expect 2020
Terrific.
Ignite will have something else. I would assume that probably Phil and Shelley will choose that one because although they've been a big supporter of both Cigars for Warriors and the Navy SEAL Foundation, it really was Daniel Peterson that many of you met at the trade shows. He is retired SEAL Team 1, and he really brought that charity and the mission of bringing our Navy SEAL operators back into garrison, back into the communities where they need to transition in with their families, where their families need to transition together with them when they come out of the field, come out of the theater. And it's a big challenge transitioning people that are of that mindset, of that level of awareness and that level of training and intensity to bring them back into the community, to be an active member and to be cohesive back with their family and the community. So it's been a great blessing. And then, of course, the 300 Hands right now is limited to Nicaragua because we have produced to date all cigars to Nicaragua. But let me say this, that we would love to see 300 Hands expanded into Honduras, into the Dominican, into Costa Rica, other places that are tobacco growing regions, Mexico, that are also cigar producing regions. So although it is our brand, although the Charity itself today is a Southern Draw charity. We would open that up to any brand that wants to offer something similar to tell the story, because most cigars take the same 300 hands to make, no matter where they're made. The process, those people have names, they have families, they have challenges in their community. And if they're willing to share that with us, and we can share it with you, the media, we can share it with consumers and the retailers. Again, I've said this a few times, none of us can make a big impact on our own. We're not that well heeled, but together we can make a difference. And we can tell that story. And ultimately, every time we smoke that cigar, we know that we're doing something to bring some assistance that's outside of regular salary, outside of their regular jobs. I think food, shelter, clothing, and education is important. It's essential, but I have a vision for the people in our industry that make this possible, that they'll have this generation, the next generation will have a better opportunity to do something more if that's what they choose to do. And the only way to do that is make sure that they're getting some resources above and beyond just the average salary that it takes to work in this tobacco industry, because it's not enough to do anything more than sustain. That's just a fact of the matter.
Mm-hmm. The 300 Hands is a great project that you do, and the cigars are terrific as well. Particularly the one that I was especially fond with was also released last year. And again, it, you know, for any new audience members we have tonight, they're probably thinking, gosh, Bear's lauding over these milder cigars. He must be a mild-bodied smoker. I typically smoke heavier stuff, but I smoke everything, which is why I love the Desert Rose so much. But I also really enjoyed the 300 Hands Connecticut. I thought that was also incredibly well done as well. Which, interestingly enough, a lot of people don't realize that's genuine American Connecticut shade on that cigar, correct?
That's correct. And that Peruvian binder on that just provides a level of brightness and kind of a unique spice element that it hasn't been found in our traditional Nicaraguan Dominican binder filler combination. It really added a flavor profile that makes it a brighter cigar that once you get into it, it does have more body, and it's got a great retro. It's very clean. It's very unique. I call it a short finish cigar. So long finish, heavier cigars typically linger a little bit on the palate, coated a little bit more with those oils. But this is a drier cigar that is so bright. It works well when it's hot out. It works well when you're drinking.
But it doesn't turn bitter, though.
It does not. It does not. And again, God bless the hands that make it, because when you can roll a cigar that has literally the perfect draw, the perfect ignition rate, the perfect burn rate, it's not going to get hot and bitter. And, you know, I think we've always been able to do this with our cigars, but, you know, I typically can hold any cigar right there at the ash and I won't burn my finger no matter what it is. This team is extremely talented, extreme attention to detail that makes sure that, to me, all of our cigars, the last third is the best third. That just comes from how we choose to bunch our cigars. It doesn't make it right or wrong, but it's not going to get hot, and we want you to take the bands off and smoke it. And I think, to me, the last third of most of our cigars are probably the preferred third for me.
No, I would completely concur with that statement, Robert. I think all of your cigars, the ones that I've smoked, and I'm fairly positive I've smoked everything that you've made. And that is but that is something that absolutely rings true. The second half, particularly, I'll go with you on the second, third, but definitely the second half, the cigar finishes for each one of your cigars incredibly well. So definitely hats off to you on that. I agree with you on that 100%. So kind of going into this charity thing that you were talking about, and I'm man, if you and AJ can make that work, I would love to see y'all's take on a 300 Hands Honduran cigar. I would love to see I would love to see that happen. That's my vote, by the way. I'm just tossing it in there. I think you guys could do some stellar stuff with Honduran tobacco, but this is kind of goes back to, again, your roots. Now, for those people who don't know your story, I don't want to necessarily get into the long version of it, because it is a very epic tale, and I don't want to also butcher it as well. But, you know, basically Southern Draw was born out of unfortunate circumstances in 2008 for yourself, where, you know, everyone knows the history of what happened in 2008. A lot of people lost a lot of things, including yourselves. And you guys decided to launch Southern Draw, and you decided to do it a different way. And what I really loved about it was that you guys wanted to live incredibly thin and give back as much as possible. And that's the idea of where the mission of charity came into it. And so talk a little bit about your decision to really be that mission first company and why that was so important for you, given your own unfortunate circumstances and where Southern Draw was born out of.
Sure. And thanks for the opportunity. You know, we say we're on year 7 as a brand, but we're really on like year 14. There was a lot of planning and a lot of, you know, homework and a lot of education going on in Central and South America in the tobaccos and the blending for somebody like me that's been smoking my entire adult life. I've smoked only premium cigars, no cigarettes. I've smoked a few pipes, not the crack pipe. I put that down years ago. But, you know, the truth of the matter is my previous business and career took me into these tobacco growing, cigar producing regions, which was an incredible experience. And it really captured my heart as to how hard and how humble people are, but how willing they are to do the best job they can. But, you know, 2008, as you said, Bear, a tough time for a lot. We went from pretty significant wealth to literally overnight nothing without going into great detail. But I think the most important thing is the takeaway that Sharon had to that and her response as I came back to the States after learning that we kind of were part of a scam, a fraud with the big foreign government, and they basically outplayed us and we lost. And that was my fault. Pure and simple, it was my decisions, my fault. And unfortunately, the consequences are not only our family, but other members of our family that had time and money committed into our business that one day really had some great assets, the next day had nothing. So this is really where it comes down to Southern Draw. The one thing that brought incredible peace and comfort in times like that was enjoying a cigar and having a conversation and learning that other people have similar stories, have similar struggles, and in many times their struggles far surpass anything that you could ever fathom for yourself or your own family. So you know, it was really Sharon's idea that she said, I think that after 17 years together, doing everything on your own, me raising the kids has got to come to an end. If we're going to move forward, we're going to move forward together. And I want to do it with you. And I feel like there's something about this tobacco, something about the cigar itself as a tool to share our story, share our faith, and to try to do good and replace all the bad. And let me turn that light back on. I'll be right back.
No problem. We're here for take 136 with Mr. Robert Holt of Southern Draw. This is his second appearance on ELOSOFUMARTAKES, and we're really excited to have him. And we're kind of reflecting on the first lustrum. We're calling it the first 5 years of Southern Draw. We're well into the second lustrum. Well, not well into it, but we're into the second lustrum, into our 6th year as a company. And so we're exploring that a little bit tonight. And Robert's talking a little bit about the beginnings of Southern Draw as he kind of gets his lighting sorted out there. If you guys are interested at all in taking a look at some of his story, he's told it many a times on many different places, and it's been a fantastic ride for him. Really encourage you guys all to take a look at what you know, where all this came from and where and what's brought him here. What's brought him here to the current time and everything. But if you guys are interested in taking a look at, I'm taking a look at making sure that I can get the right number. I don't want you guys to go back. So it was take 58. It was all the way back to take 58, where Robert actually appeared on for the first time with ELOSOFUMARTAKES. So now we're at take 136. Take 58, and that's where we are with Mr. Robert Holt of Southern Draw. So, Robert, yeah, you were saying about your beginnings there.
So, you know, the beginning of Southern Draw was really the result of some unfortunate things, but it was the moment that Sharon and I decided to do something together. Now, that being said, you've mentioned the Hogans, among other folks that are in our family. They were also part of the past. They would have been part of the great growth and the great financial return of our previous business. So obviously when you start a new venture, you want the people that you trust and that you love and that have a like mindset together. Now try to share a story, Bear, with your family and friends that right now you need to put some resources together. And when you have a lot of money, you have a lot of friends, right? When you have the boats and the fancy cars and the big houses and do the big vacation, everybody's your friend. That's just a fact of life. But when you're down on your knees and you have nothing left, who are your friends? And that's what really surfaced. That came to the top for us. And most of those people that were there for us are still here with us today and part of Southern Draw. Of course, they're behind the scenes. They're quiet. Sometimes you see them at trade shows and events. But the reality of it is they've been very graceful or gracious by allowing us to do what we do. So that was the beginning. But now move forward for a guy that comes out of a corporate world and corporate finance and realize that there's no way you're going to raise money for a new cigar brand in the face of all the competition when you come right out of the gate and you say, we're going to be mission oriented and we're going to make sure that we're not giving back at what we have at the end of the year. We're going to give from the first fruits. We're going to give from the first product, from the first monies, from the first resources we have, and we're going to identify ways to share that up front. And if we don't make our numbers at the end of the year, if we don't sell enough cigars, we're not going to rely on cash flow at the end of the year to donate a few dollars. No, we're going to have to do it up front. And now convince your friends and family to invest their time and their money and their resources and to take a risk, knowing damn well that your margins are going to take a hit to do the right thing. Now, that being said, my wife put it in perspective for me. She said, maybe instead of worrying about trying to spend time and money getting back what was taken from us, we focus on doing something fresh and new together. And maybe you need to understand that maybe the plan for our family, for our lives, and again, coming from a family of faith, which we definitely need, is to say that maybe the good Lord dangled this giant carrot and he offered you all this vision of wealth and grandeur. And what you did with it is you became kind of an asshole. You and I were pushed apart. The business came first. The mission was not ever discussed.
She didn't pull any punches, did she?
She didn't mess around. She did not words. And she said, maybe that little carrot was dangled there so that it could be pulled away and you realize what's important. And she goes, it's not to be cliche. It was a decision you had to make that we're going to stay together. We're going to stay together as a family and we're going to do things together as a family, or you're going to be on your own and you're going to die a lonely old man trying to get back the people that wronged you, because that's my nature. My nature is to be vicious and to go back and to clean up the mess, right? But was she right, Bear? I think we're all sitting here tonight because she was spot on. And to say that, our family also accepted that role and said, hey, we're going to invest what we have left. We've already lost a lot, but we're going to share what we have left. You guys go do the right thing, and we trust you to do it. And that first 5 years was the gift of our competitors. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The feedback from AJ Fernandez, of course, the education of all of the factories we met with, all the tobacco growers that we met with, all of the resources to make boxes and bundles and samplers and UPCs, the grace of our competitors, whether it's, Black Label or it's Skip and Michael over at Rumacraft sharing how they do, what they do, and how they're so efficient in what they do. If it wasn't for the advice of the people that we were going to compete in the marketplace with, we would have had a lot more potholes. We would have broken a lot more axles. We would have had a lot more flat tires. But it was all of them offering us their support and their knowledge and their years of experience in an industry that we had no business in. So we didn't do it on our own. We can say that. So the first 5 years was getting our footing and ensuring that when we walked into AJ Fernandez 7 years ago, I said, AJ, here's our 15-year plan. And he laughed. He says, that'll never work. Something like that, not to minimize it, but I showed him a 15-year production cycle with our annual growth, our blends, our sizes, everything that we wanted to do in our corporate mindset of giant spreadsheets. And I think he really looked at me like, let's just get past the first 50,000 cigars. And the reality of it is, the media picked it up, the retailers picked it up, the consumers picked it up, and we stayed busy and we stayed on the road. And the first 5 years was to prove something. And what we wanted to prove is we're committed and we're dedicated. We're going to bring you the best product we can. We're going to do it for the fairest price possible. And we're going to spend as much time with you anytime you give us the chance. And ultimately, it's not about us. It's about people that we work for. And those people happen to be living in little metal and cinder block houses in a third world country that just needs shelter, food, clothing, and an opportunity for education for their kids. And ultimately, if you buy into that, even a substandard product would have been okay. But the reality is we brought good product for a fair price because our partnerships afforded us that opportunity. But man, you got a lot of factors here that allowed us to get through that first 5 years. And, you know, you mentioned Lustrum, and, you know, we don't use Spanish in our brands and our names, our bands on our core stuff say Soli Deo Gloria. It's a reminder that when we say glory to God alone, it's not to minimize anybody's faith. We're just people of faith, and we respect everybody's faith. But for us, we use the Latin terminology because there's never going to be confusion with Spanish language or Spanish spellings of cigars and brand related. So Lustrum, for people that don't know, is a 5-year period, a 5-year anniversary. And for us, going back to the first cigar we ever produced, which was the Kudzu Oscuro, and putting it out as an anniversary was a true celebration. And honestly, it was a thank you to our retailers and to the media and to our family for supporting us for 5 years when, of course, we could have just faded away into the distance like many, many brands. And there's a lot of great brands, Bear, that have come and gone. It's not because they didn't have good product people. It's because they didn't have the same grace that we've been afforded. They didn't have the same people around them that cared and embraced them enough. And if you want to talk about humility, lose everything you've ever had in your life when you've been the guy that was the life of the party and see who shows up on Saturday night, right? It's a different ballgame. So that humility, I think, allowed us to rely on these partnerships and relationships very humbly. But the result of that is together we were able to accomplish something that Sharon and I could never have accomplished on our own.
You know, you talked about that corporate mindset and your background and where you came from. And you've also talked about your incredible relationship with AJ Fernandez. And I love the story that I heard about how when you first decided to go into business with AJ to make your cigars, and you had your attorney just print up this gorgeous document. I heard it was at least a ream of paper, and you take it into AJ, and he might have laughed at your 15-year plan, but he also laughed at that as well. And you don't operate off that contract. You operate off something a little bit more humble, shall we say?
You know, absolutely, Bear. And you know, I don't know if even AJ ever recalls that he's done so many deals in his life, but when you go in after what we just went through and we make a decision to work together, out of all the factories in the world, we believe the same today as we did back then with AJ and that team. No question about it. It's been a great decision for all of us. But of course, I wanted to dot my I's and cross my T's. And when I say a ream of paper, I tell people that are watching, I'm not embellishing. And not only was it a ream of paper, but it was two-sided because one side was English and one side is Spanish. Everything was covered. Our money was taken care of as long as we did everything on our side. On their side, you know, there's monetary, you know, requirements there. And ultimately, being the angry guy, the angry army guy that just got beat by a foreign government, you know, and I lost a battle, to go in there and make sure we're covered, it's my responsibility to my family to do it. And for him to take literally 5 minutes to look at it and push it back across the table and go, let's just look at it this way. I'm a farmer from Cuba. You're a Texan, makes you a farmer from Texas. And if we can't shake hands and do business, we can't do business together because neither one of us are going to be governed in our relationship by that paper. You've got to trust me and I've got to trust you. And ultimately, you know, it led to a long-term relationship commitment. And AJ has said this to me before. Freddie will say it. There's been many times where he's put his business and his brand and his larger customers, put them off on some projects to take care of us in our time of need. And, you know, a lot of people want mass production of the big brands, but we need our production and we need it on time, and we make mistakes. Not all the packaging materials are there sometimes, you know, and things change over time, but I've seen them adapt over time. And if we had that contract, Bear, we've never been able to adapt without a amendment or an addendum, right? So our addendum literally is a conversation that says, hey, I screwed up here and I need your help. Or he says, hey, I've got some production open here. Can you take this production and expand, you know, more Rosa Sharon, because I know you can sell them. And ultimately, our addendum is the same as our contract, which is our handshake, and we try to help each other. And we just hope we make him proud about, you know, what we do and how we do it.
That's awesome. I love that story. I love the old handshake agreement. I remember another factory owner also telling me about their handshake agreement, and it was Sandy Cobus of El Titan de Bronze down there in Miami, and she was talking about her agreement with Kyle Gellis of Warped. And Kyle did something similar as well. He's like, yeah, I'd love for you to make some of my stuff, Sandy. It would be great. And she said, yeah, absolutely. Sounds fantastic. And they got together, and he presented her with the contract, and she was like, what's that? And she said, no, this is going to be on a handshake rule. And it's amazing that in 2020, how many of these deals are struck and are so successful with just a handshake between two, as AJ put it, a farmer from Cuba and a farmer from Texas. It's a wonderful and beautiful thing. So as you started off, after you guys, put together this partnership with AJ, and you started testing out blends and getting together on some of your first releases. Now, cigars are something you've enjoyed frequently for a long time. It's been part of it's been your personal, I've heard you say it's been your personal vacation, your personal moment for a long time. But Sharon didn't always share that affinity along with you until you happened to be smoking a cigar one night on the patio, and this was just shortly after your agreement with AJ. And she walked in, and she walked in the backyard, and you were smoking, and for the first time ever, as the story goes, she didn't take a step back. She actually really enjoyed the moment, and that became your first cigar, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's almost exactly like that. And here's the thing: I have now smoked cigars for over 30 years, and again, my entire adult life, and what an evolution of the products, number one, which has been an incredible thing to see. I would say it's like going from the first iPod to the current iPhone, right? This industry has learned to do things bigger, better, faster, and efficiently. And these processes that the Godfathers, Kings, and Queens have refined have opened the world to all of us. It's been amazing. The interpretations from all the brands is always fun. How we ferment, how we age, how we blend. It's amazing. But Sharon had been around my cigar smoking for a long time, and I'm not going to say she never smoked a cigar, because she did over time. But there was always feedback about the odor or the smell on the face, the hair, the nose, the clothes, even my own cigars. But the particular cigar is, when we went to AJ Fernandez, the first two blends of Southern Draw had already been blended. I already had the samples. My problem was the original samples that I had from my blends, what I thought was going in production was not even close. And it's not a knock on the factory that I was initially discussing this with, but I had a challenge in making sure that my blend from the concept and the samples would be carried through in the execution of production. And maybe it was the access to the tobaccos, maybe it was the age, the fermentation, the process in itself. Sometimes samples are the best thing that you get out of a production. But I actually took those to AJ and said, here's my challenge. And I laid the cigars down, if he remembers this, and I said, here's my samples of my first two blends. Here's what is coming from the factory as production. And there are some distinct differences, and I'm not satisfied. What do you think? And he really gave me his feedback as he tore them apart. He smoked them, and he said, it has to do with the age, fermentation, the sourcing of the tobaccos, and really learn your lesson, Robert, of these are good blends, but you don't have enough of the tobaccos, of the same tobaccos and the same quality of the tobaccos, the same age and the same fermentation process. You're going to run into a problem for long term if you make it that long. And that really was his first advice to me. But this particular cigar, not ironically, is the blend that I'm smoking right now. And I did just take the band off. But, I was sitting smoking an unbanded cigar. And as Sharon walked up, the wind was coming into my face, and she was behind me. And I watched her kind of lean over, and she kind of took the smoke, and she kind of smelled it a little bit. And she took the cigar from my hand, and she took a little draw, kind of blew a little smoke. And she says, Robert, tell me the difference between that cigar and every cigar you've smoked over the years that I've been around. She goes, because it's so clean. Even my hands, after holding it, smell like I washed my hands. it feels like a clean cigar. On my palate, it had wonderful flavor. The smoke was wonderful, but now my mouth is clean again. And she goes, my eyes aren't watering, you know, and she says, what's the difference? And I said, you know, it really comes down to well-aged, well-fermented tobacco that even after rolling, the post-roll aging, allowing those tobaccos to marry, to have a real good experience with the ignition, burn rate, again, temperatures, everything. And I said, what do you think? She says, I don't know what that is, but I think we can sell it. Now that was a beautiful Habano Rosado wrapper, probably the first such San Andreas binder, probably at that point that I'm aware of in the industry, where we used the big Maduro as a binder under a very subtle, thin-skinned wrapper and a beautiful Nicaraguan filler, but that is known as the Firethorn. And it was that moment that took me on the plane to really go back to AJ and go, this is what we want to do, and this is what we want to start with. And the reason is we want to start in the middle with the Firethorn Habano Rosado and the Kudzu Oscuro. We wanted to start in that medium to full range, so we had range to grow the brand. And it was really her feedback, her liking the recipe, her liking how it smelled in the kitchen, you know, ultimately that gave me confidence to even take a step forward.
That's awesome. I love that story as well. You just have some really amazing moments along the way that have kind of, you know, written the story for you as you've kind of built this, as you built this company up to where it is today and everything. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. You know, there's always that watershed moment for people in any business, in any industry, where you kind of have that aha moment of, you kind of look around and all of a sudden I'm a cigar company owner. So what was that moment for you? Was it the first trade show? Was it your first event? Was it the first sale that you made? What was that moment for you?
You know, I wish I could say I've had the moment. I'm not sure we've had it yet, Bear. I think we feel blessed every day that we're still here, that we're still being supported, there's still the demand, that our partners are still intact, our family sanity is still here. But honestly, we feel like we just scratched the surface. You know, to us, it's been 7 years exclusively working on this brand and its offerings, but we don't feel like we've done anything yet. So we don't know that we're in the industry yet, because we feel like if you're a godfather and you're a second, third, fourth generation brand, you still think that these smaller brands are going to fall off, right? They're going to disappear. The support will dissipate, especially with economic challenges, right? Every quarter, every time we produce cigars, we're all in again, right? Because you're growing at a pace that every free dollar that you have available is going into product and raw materials. So I don't know that we've had that moment yet where we felt confident that we belong and that we are a player, because we are just who we are. Our authentic us is, we just approach every day that we do as much as we can. We do the best we can. And it's sometimes not good enough. Sometimes it's great. There's moments that you feel really good about what you're doing. There's moments that you don't sleep, for weeks at a time because of the challenges, and you don't want to let anybody down. You don't want to let your partners down. You don't want to let your family down. You don't want to let your customers down. The pressure for us is probably self-imposed, but I haven't had that moment because I don't know what tomorrow holds. And all I can do is deal with today. So, we just keep hoping that we have the grace and the patience of literally from the Lord all the way down to all of us as flawed people. But, it's not to a point yet where we're convinced that we're anything more than what we are today. And that is, today we're going to do the best we can. We're going to make the best products we can. We're going to share them. We're going to spend time with people, and we hope they continue to support it. And if we, by the grace of God, have an opportunity tomorrow, we're going to do the same thing. But it's a challenge to pat yourself on the back in this industry. It's a challenge to feel like you've made it on top of the hill, because we're not there. It's just it's just a day by day situation, I think, for us.
I think that is some of your previous life kind of creeping in there a little bit, Robert, that hunger and that desire to keep going and to keep making things better and better, because you have received those pats on the back. You guys have received some wild critical acclaim in your time. You can call it a short time if you will, but 7 years in this industry is in some cases, like you said, is a long time, because there are brands that come and go. It's really quite sad. One comes to mind. I was, a brand that I was personally really akin to, which was Cornelius and Anthony. I mean, a couple of years ago, that was a brand that was kind of on the verge, and then all of a sudden, and then before you blinked twice, it was gone. And that's something that like you said, is unfortunately a very common saga that we see in this industry. And for you to keep going, and that hunger to keep building and keep growing is certainly served you well and will continue to serve well. But speaking of pats on the back, as I mentioned, you've received critical acclaim throughout the first lustrum and now into the second lustrum, with several number ones on several media outlets, several top fives, top tens, top 25s. You've landed on the consensus of Half Wheel, and you've done some incredible stuff with your cigar offerings. When you started receiving some of you kind of alluded to this earlier in the interview when you said the media kind of picked it up. When you started receiving some of this critical acclaim, what not to sound like a psychologist here, but how did that make you feel? What kind of feedback did that give you to what you and Sharon were building?
I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we have very high expectations, Bear. We have high expectations of everything we put out, and it's rightfully so, I think, which is we have access to raw materials that most brands don't because they're very loyal to a certain source. We have probably the fastest growing factory partner in the world with AJ that is just still young enough and vigorous enough to take these challenges and explore with us, but having access to get tobaccos from anywhere we want, to process it any way we want, to ferment it any way we want to accomplish a mission. We've got access in a way that their expectation of us has got to be high, and our expectation of what we put out has got to be high as well. That being said, you got to feel good when you get an accolade. Companies of the years, brands of the year, cigars of the year, those are all great, especially when we haven't been blessed with the money to pay ourselves yet, which means we haven't even been blessed with the money to really circulate it among the advertising and the media outlets. We spent a lot of time, we shared a lot of cigars, we do what we can do, and we look forward to the day where we have the ability to advertise at the level of other companies. And I know it took them years as well. But for me, I look at it as a acknowledgement of the commitment the family made. I love nothing more than to share those awards and accolades with the family. I like nothing more to share it with the partners, whether it's AJ, and I say Cigar Rings because they've been our exclusive provider, all of our bands and box flaps and vistas and all the things that they do for us. But to me, it's all of those elements that make our products what they are, and ultimately they should all play a role in the victory, right? They should all be part of the end zone dance, if you will. So for me, I like nothing more than to share when 300 hands, a $5.50 cigar makes a top 25, or Ignite Corojo number 4 gets a top 25. And it actually got like 8 top 25s last year. Nothing more than to share it with the people that made it. The actual hands that made it, to go share and sit down with them and show them how appreciated they are, because I'm not a pedigreed tobacconist. I'm not a guy that worked for other brands and worked in the retail and worked in the factories. No, we did this very organically, and we did it by making sure we had good partnership and good family behind us. So I'm hard on us. I'm hard on myself. I'm anxious in 2021 because we haven't really sent out media kits. We haven't shared anything because none of us have gotten together. I know other brands are going to get it. Socket kick ass. It eats me up because I think we have good line of products. I think that what we're doing is on par with pretty much anybody that's doing. The big brands have their challenges and they make some really good cigars, but we get to select to do it at 100,000 or 150,000 cigar level, not 2 or 3 million, right? You get to make DeLoreans if you want to make DeLoreans, right? We get to make 2020 C8 Corvettes if we want to, but we're not making Sonatas. We're not making Kias here. We're making a more refined, more focused product with more expensive tobaccos because we're not making as much of it. Our expectations high, and we get excited. And when we don't win and we don't get acknowledged and we don't get awarded, it hits me hard because they're my babies. You know, it's like telling me I have an ugly kid, you know, could be the ugliest baby. But it feels good, and it feels good to share it, and we don't wear it on our shirts. We don't put it up on the website as look at us. We don't put it on a catalog. We don't put it on our boxes and say, you know, yeah, how about that cigar, #1 cigar of the year, Stogie Press, #1 cigar of the year. You know, as you mentioned, a Half Wheel Consensus, #2, #3, #4 in the last 3 years. You know, we haven't done that because that's not our story. That is a thanks, and we do appreciate it, and we love it. But it's really a thanks for everybody that took part, not just Robert and Sharon, because it's not our victory. It's everybody's victory. And I'm not trying to, you know, play down the importance, because it's vitally important to show the body of work that our family and our partners have done deserves some accolades if you're just comparing cigars as a consumer, right? But our expectations are high. We expect a lot of ourselves. And when they don't have a consensus acceptance in the market, then I failed our family, and I failed our partners, because I put them in a position that wasn't optimal. And I've got to learn from that too. So for me, getting my ass kicked and putting my tail between my legs and learning from that is not a natural thing for me. I take offense to it, right? But we also think, Bear, that we should be getting better at what we do. We know our partners better. We know the routes they're running. You know, we know that we need to get better at what we do. And we hope that in the coming months and coming years that what we put out is even going to far surpass anything we've done in the past. So how do I tell you that when I send a media kit or a PR out that this is the best thing we've ever done? And I saw someone else post the other day, it can't be the best time. Everything can't be the best thing that's ever come out. And I don't agree at all. If it's not better than what you've already put out, don't put it out. That's my belief. If that Desert Rose to me wasn't a better, more refined cigar than the original Rose of Sharon that's selling, why would I put it out?
That's a fair point.
And that's our goal. Our goal is everything we put out should be better than what we've done in the past.
Absolutely. So, Robert, thank you so much for kind of exploring the last Lustrum. We're going to go into what the vision and what the journey is for the second Lustrum here in a couple of minutes, but we do want to kind of break up the show here with one of our more fun segments. This is a segment we've done for the last few months now. It's been really fun to explore with my guests, and that is our One Must Go. So it's as always, it's brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. Smoke one today and start living united. So Robert, this was, as I explained before the show, and you wanted to be caught by surprise, not caught off guard, but caught by surprise on what your choices would be. And so I wanted to take take a little bit different spin this time, because I don't think there's any way that you could actually say goodbye to any of these three choices, and I'll explain why in a second. I have the same proclivity as you do when it comes to this topic, and your good friend and great representative in the Northeast, Joe D, is in the audience tonight, and he commented earlier about my use of the word y'all. And I am from Texas, and so y'all is definitely part of my lexicon, and it's something that I use quite frequently. My also much ballyhooed word is also fantastic. I use it probably a little bit more than I should. Much like the word you talked about Steve Sacco a moment ago. He hates when I tag the word legend onto him, or legend on everything. Legend is an overused term in this business too, but that being said, I took a look at your own lexicon, and there are some words that you use quite often, and as part of your charm and as part of your character and things that I've loved. And so I wanted to see what would be the one that you could probably say goodbye to the easiest. So a different spin. Usually I have to say you have to kick one out and say goodbye to it, but I just don't think you could ever say goodbye to any of these words. But what would be the easiest? And so this is still a very hard question, but it's meant to be fun. So your three words, and the one that would be the easiest to remove from your vocabulary. And those three words are, one we've mentioned quite a bit tonight, family. The next one is brother, how you commonly refer to most people. And the other word is blessed, a word that you choose to describe a lot of your business dealings, especially with Southern draws. So You are a blessed man, as you've often said. This is a blessed company. You are in a blessed endeavor. So those are the three words: blessed, brother, and family. Now, what would be the easiest word to remove from your vocabulary, in your opinion?
Well, it's a fair question, and number one, blessed is probably the most important because we have to remember that every day. So that will never we'll never have an opportunity to eliminate that from our daily discussions. Brother is important because in these times, Bear, in the times that we're all in today and what we see, all the separation and the lines being drawn, to refer to somebody as a brother and on the flip side, a sister, I think is important. It makes them understand how important they are in your life as the reference to a brother would be, right?
Agreed.
But the third of that is family. So family incorporates brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, direct, indirect, and people that sometimes we say friends, and friends by definition are the family that we've elected, that we've selected, right?
Yeah.
We've selected, made them part of our family. So family really incorporates everything. So the only one we could eliminate effectively without affecting our mission and our everyday discussion is brother, because family still incorporates the brother. Whereas if we took family out, my sisters would be upset, man. We can't.
It's fair. I guess I got a little sexist with that second one. I certainly did. No, I was really thinking about some things for this particular segment for tonight, and I thought it was very appropriate because I like I said, I share the same proclivity you do. I use some of the same words very frequently, and I'm often teased about it as well. And I just thought that this would be an interesting exercise. I knew you couldn't kick one to the curb, and that's kind of the concept typically with this segment, is kicking one to the curb. And I knew you wouldn't be able to say, oh yeah, I could get rid of this, but I thought would be which one would be the easiest. And I really do like that explanation. I think that that is spot on. You could still incorporate family and by removing the term brother or sister from your everyday language. But never fear, everyone. This is just an exercise. Robert will continue to refer to you as brother and sister, as he does endear all of us with his charm and his mission with Southern Draw. So, Robert, thank you for participating in the One Must Go. Of course, as I mentioned before, One Must Go is always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So, and if Joe D is still watching, I will continue to say y'all. So get over it. But Robert, kind of moving into the second lustrum and your vision. Now we are into the sixth and now going into the seventh year of Southern Draw. And as we kind of are making baby steps towards that 10th year and completing the second lustrum, I wanted to kind of explore what your vision was for the next few years. And I know you probably have, like you mentioned, a 15-year plan in the very beginning of when you started. I'm sure you've got visions beyond that, but I kind of wanted to be long-sighted but short-sighted, as oxymoronic as that says. But let's talk about 2020. We've hammered it quite a bit already, but you had mentioned previous in the year, like I said, you made a conservative decision to forego any more in-person events for the remainder of the year. You decided to take a pause from new releases at the time because of what that would say to what you've done in the past by introducing it at trade shows and things like that. But can we expect anything new from Southern Draw in 2020, or is everything kind of gone its path for this crappy year that it's been for everybody? And are you looking at 2021 now? What's the foresight for the rest of what we have to look forward to in 2020?
Well, it's some of both, right? So let's talk about the first thing. What's 2020 like, and then we'll get into 2021. In the next month, we're going to have a series of retail exclusives, projects that we've worked on for multiple years. And I posted this the other day because I get a lot of questions from retailers about exclusives. Any retail partner of Southern Draw qualifies to do an exclusive. This takes a lot of time. It takes financial commitment, and we're making a product for you that is that requires a full commitment from you, because it's not something I can sell to somebody else. Like, I can't rename the Rose of Sharon something else. It is what it's meant to be, right? So we're going to launch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to launch 5 retail exclusives within the next 45 days. Long-term projects that are going to be exciting. They're going to be fun. We're going to give them all the attention. We're going to make sure the media that supports exclusives like that. And these are large production for the most part. They're not small, minute productions, but there are exclusives. Some are line extensions, of course, current blends of Southern Draw and that are unique in variation or size. And the others are actually new blends that come from our private blend collections that we have available to our retailers. So that's going to be 5. We will have 2 or 3 line extensions for Southern Draw from the core lines that are coming out between end of September, end of November. I know we're going to miss a lot of windows with the media, and they're not going to have time to smoke them. They're not going to rate them and review them, and it's going to gut me at the end of the year. But the beauty of this, Barry, is this delay allowed us to leave these cigars in the aging room for a long time. And when I'm smoking samples that just came in from these new releases, whether it's the retail exclusives or our line extensions, they only got better. They got phenomenal. They went from really good to phenomenal, in my opinion, as a cigar smoker. So we're going to continue our journey on some line extensions that we had planned for the first couple, 3 quarters of the year. And we're going to try to get all that accomplished before the 15th of November. So at least we get a shot at some of the media that are sitting around and need something to smoke. And we hope they find a way to fit us in. But so I'm going to tell you right now, that's at least 7 or 8 things that you haven't smoked yet between now and middle of November will be in your hands, and you'll smoke them. And as a consumer, those that are watching, we're going to tell you where to get them and how to get them. You know, we're going to give them a lot of love and attention. And pretty much all my posts for the rest of the year will be about these new cigars and exclusives and line extensions. That being said, we did table the most important thing. We have not added a new core line to full production in the last 2 years. Cedrus was the last. Obviously, we've expanded it over the last year, but we haven't introduced a new core blend. We typically try to do that every 2 years. So we had one that we planned for all 7 years for this year. And I think between AJ Fernandez and I think we've decided that we're going to probably push that to Q1 of next year to give it time to get in the hands of the media, get it in the hands of the retailer. Hopefully travel will open back up and we can go do some in-person events to launch that. But we're going to hold that new core line extension and try to wait till Q1 of next year to do that. You know, what does next year hold? I'm not sure about with the trade show, TPE moving to May, PCA is currently scheduled for July. Obviously, if those shows happen, we'll attend and we'll have something new and fresh to release because we have things in production or have already been produced for those in anticipation of it. But we're like everybody else, Bear. We're going to have to sit back and wait and see what 2021 brings to us. But we're going to celebrate this year, and we're going to have the fall release collection is going to be fun. It's going to be quick. It's going to be rapid. And, you know, the media may not even have a chance to get all the press releases and everything out that we want to do. But we're going to give it a lot of love for the next 3 months and make sure these new products get out on the market and we get to enjoy the majority of them anyway.
That's really exciting stuff to hear, Robert. I'm really excited to see what comes to fruition as you guys continue to build for 2021 and knock out a few of these store releases that you were talking about and alluding to. I'm really excited to see what that homework you were working on earlier becomes as well. But there was something that you actually were planning for 2020 before we even knew what COVID-19 was, or coronavirus, or the terms like essential jobs or quarantine or shelter in place, all these terms that have become part of our lexicon, kind of to allude back to our previous segment in the last few months. And that was last year you announced in late 2019 that you were planning on doing some excursions that were going to be for not just retailers, not just consumers, but also media members as well. You are going to include the entire gamut of the premium cigar industry, what makes up your audience, if you will. And you guys announced that you guys were going to be doing these excursions. And so I wanted to see if this was something that was still part of the plan for 2021, and what exactly was planned for these excursions, and if anything's changed, or if you guys are still planning on doing it as you envisioned it.
The short answer, absolutely. The Southern Draw excursions was really an idea that Sharon formulated to tie not only my passion for premium cigars and not only our brand, but many, many brands that I like to support and smoke. I don't even know, but you know, little things like this right here, you know, that I keep on hand. You know, over the years, the two things that have kept me sane through it all, the good times and the bad, have been cigars and the conversations that cigars allow me to have. But my biggest passion really is being on the water, whether it's on the ocean, whether it's in a river up in the Rocky Mountains, whether it's in Canada or South America or Central America. I find great peace being on the water, and I'm more of a fly fisherman than I am anything else. But in the last couple of years, we've tested out a concept where we had a couple of sales events that lasted a month long with a couple of retailers, one of which is in South Florida last year, whereas I brought another cigar personality. We brought some cigars that weren't out yet, that we had, you know, in production that we hadn't even announced. We took the sales associates that produced the most during that month, and we brought them in and we let them stay with the family. We actually went out and caught some fish, and we went and had a nice meal, you know, prepared of the fresh fish. We spent a lot of social time on the patio, you know, having cocktails, talking about what our plans are, sharing our new cigars, and really get to know each other on a personal basis. And what I find in the last 7 years is I have a lot less money than I've ever had, which means I don't get to have much free time, and I don't get to go do things that I used to do, which I used to fly fish a tremendous amount, among other things. But my wife says, you know, why don't we get the media and the retailers and the consumers and find a way to get them in to spend time with our family on some of these excursions? And these may be in South Florida, in the Florida Keys. These may be, you know, in Yellowstone National Park. These may be in the Ashley National Forest of Utah, where we have spent a lot of time. It may be here in Texas on a ranch where you're just going to relax. But our goal with the excursion is to get people out of their everyday roles and responsibilities and get them away so we get to know their story, where we can share products, we can share time, and we can share our passions. And it's not so much about whether they like to fish or not. I'm going to always fish if I get a chance, but it's about introducing them to something outside of the normal workplace and the normal family environment, and become part of our family for those days. And our goal for 2021, if travel restrictions are loosened up, in the spring and in the fall, do 2 excursions where we'll probably have a couple of members of the media, a couple of members, consumers that have attended events and, you know, have won some type of raffle. And then, of course, the retailers that participate in some of these events, really as an extension of the fellowship, an extension of the social time. Because at the end of the events, you don't always get time to talk to the media at the trade shows and events. Yeah, we all make time, but do we get to spend quality time together where our attention's not elsewhere? We're looking at our calendars and our clocks, and I got to get to the next booth. And as a retailer, you work your butt off selling products, you work your butt off at events, but you don't really get the downtime with us, which we enjoy. And then ultimately the consumers, not just being there where they came through the line, they bought some cigars, they went and sat down, they might have won a raffle, but ultimately getting an opportunity to sit down. And it's not really about me. I mean, the people that spend time with my wife are better for it. And I want to be able to take our family and what we stand for and our extended family into California and Arizona and some of the other places that we have them, and make sure they're involved. Because I think when you come together and share those stories, you understand the brand more, and we understand more of who's out there working for us, right? So the excursions are definitely going to be carried out. We hope they take a lot of planning. They take financial commitment. But, you know, if we see a window of opportunity in the travel restrictions, we're going to go ahead and start planning for spring 2021 and then again fall in 2021. And we would like to ultimately, by 2022, see about 4 trips a year where we go to different places, not just factory tours, not just, hanging out with us, but really go to a special place to get away, to share some time together and get to know each other a little bit better. And for us, share new cigars and new stories and, just make it a little R&R, if you will.
It sounds fantastic. I mean, that's definitely a different take on the traditional trips or excursions that some of us have had the ability and been blessed to have been partake in, with these factory tours, which have a great place. That's not a knock against it at all. I don't think you're knocking it as either. You're building on it, and I think that that's a really great opportunity. And I hope that does come to pass, because I think that there can be a lot to be said for, like you said, this downtime. And for people to kind of sit down with you and understand your story. As I mentioned, we kind of did the Reader's Digest version in our sum up of your first Lustrum, but I mean, it really is an epic tale, and I think that's very indicative of this industry is, it very much is part of the journey. I use that word a lot. Journey is something that a lot of us go through. And, yours has certainly been fraught with peaks and valleys, and it's one that it needs to be shared. And I think that would be a great opportunity. In fact, we had an audience member tonight that said they hadn't had a chance to try your cigars, but they were excited to. And I encouraged him to seek it out, because this is a very incredible story that you've built upon and will continue into this next lustrum and beyond. So as we kind of look at some of the foundational pieces that you've built, we talked about Firethorn and Kudzu and Lustrum already, the Rose of Sharon, the Desert Rose, Jacob's Ladder, the Brimstone, Cedrus, we haven't mentioned as much, but these are some of your foundational pieces that you've built in the last 5 years plus. As you continue to build those, are we going to be seeing more and more line extensions, different vitolas? I mean, is that part of the vision?
It is. We'll typically keep the core line. You mentioned the 5 core, meaning the Rose, Firethorn, Kudzu, Cedrus, and Jacob's Ladder. We'll typically keep those 5 core lines in 7 strict vitolas over time that we have, that are SE qualified, of course. And that is, of course, Robusto, Toro, Gordo, Lancero, 656 Perfecto, 558 Perfecto, and the Bellicoso Fino. Now, that being said, what we've seen now with the extensions of the Desert Rose, we see that as its own blend. It was originally planned to be its own blend, and it'll have its own vitolas and own releases as we toy with that moving forward. Brimstone, again, it's a unique play on the original blend, but it's a unique blend in itself, and it was registered as its own blend. And we have 5 or 6 vitolas in that blend that were in our initial 2014 offerings. So we would like to see go back to the Firethorn and spin that with some unique twists and variations as well, because that was always planned. Again, the Kudzu, we've seen a little expansion of the Lustrum. If I have the financial resources and access to that tobacco, we would love to expand the Lustrum into some other vitolas.
That was my next question. Yeah.
For the celebration. But the blend itself, that Kudzu with the Media Tiempo in a small ring gauge, the typical, Lanceros, Corona Gordos, some of those things are among the finest cigars I've ever smoked when I smoked the samples. But they didn't seem like they were prominent enough to use for the anniversary. So the Bellicoso really stood out in that 10-count Mazo as a full-size cigar, right? Where I think the Corona Gordo and the Lanceros wouldn't have had the body to really capture the image, I think, Bear. Mm-hmm. And then the Cedrus, we have some great plans for that in the future, because I really want to go back to the root of Cedrus, the Latin word for cedar, of course, the biblical reference to that cigar, and really expand on the spiritual side of it and what we intend as we kind of reach across the aisle to other people of other religions, of other beliefs and other cultures, and use that line to really kind of offer that olive branch is really what that blend is really about when we get down to it. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but we have a lot of plans for that line. And to this day, I think Cedrus is still the most uniquely complex, special blend that stands out among anything we've done. Maybe not the best every minute, every day cigar. But the blend itself, the tobaccos are so uniquely different than anything I've seen in the industry in that combination, in that blend, that I think we've got some plans for that we want to expand on. You know, we started obviously with the value line being the quick draw, and historically a quick draw was available in 3 blends, but it was also available in 3 sizes. We used to have the Petite Corona 4.5 44 and the short Panatella in the 5.5 40, and then the Corona Gorda in the 546. Now, because we grew so fast, I couldn't keep everything in production, in full production, the way I wanted, but I would like to envision getting back to all 3 core sizes of the quick draw, because it's not a big margin cigar, but for people that like small ring gauge or thin ring gauge, they really like to focus on that 30 to 40 minute size for that $5 to $6 price range. We can't discount where our roots come from, which is quick draw. Having that little time to burn is kind of the hashtag we use, Bear, but we want to get back to offering all 3 sizes of that, because they were all very popular. But seems to outsell most sizes in the industry, so we kind of stuck with it when we had to, as you say, if you had to cut something from the lexicon, we had to cut full production of 2 of those sizes. And I don't know how many orders we get every week for them, and we have to tell them we're not in production of those sizes. So I want to get back to the value line known as the quick draw and really expand that back to what our intent was. And then, of course, on the charity lines, the beauty of the charity lines is there's about 26 different blends in that Ignite series that we use. And we actually have 9 or 10 Vitolas in each one of those that are part of our original 2014 plan. So that goes from, again, you know, typical Corona size all the way to a Grand Gordo. So we have a lot of toys to play with in the private lines sizes that we'll also use within those blends for retail exclusives and other things. So our plan is to, if we've learned nothing else in 2020, Bear, we've learned this. The most important thing is to keep your core products in the core sizes on the shelves. New sizes and new releases and line extensions are fun. They get a lot of media attention. They get the loyal followers buying them. But if you want to keep a presence in retail stores, we've learned the hard way. Keep the Robusto Toro Gordo of the core sizes in stock all the time. And if you have to risk it by putting out something new, don't put out something new. Hold back on that. Keep the core line and the core sizes available to all the retailers if you want to grow.
I think that's some pretty sound advice there, Robert, and a really nice mantra that you've set up for yourself, because I think that that's kind of what we were alluding to earlier when we've seen brands come and go, is that I think that that's where a lot of people get lost. They get lost kind of in the luster of the new, and what's new is always the tired phrase that every brand owner like yourself, every manufacturer has to deal with, from the cigar nerds and then, people like myself. I'm guilty of it as well. I'm always, again, I've fasted tonight a couple of times. What's new? What's next? And that's kind of a part of the dialogue, unfortunately. But when you keep a core competency that's sound, and you keep it available, and you keep your retailers flush with it, then it best serves you in the long run. And I think that's great advice for anyone watching that is a brand owner or manufacturer. And it's great to see that Southern Draw has adopted that philosophy as well. Now, an aside that I wanted to mention tonight, Robert, I won't. They're not here to defend themselves, so I won't throw that particular retailer under the bus. But I remember being inside of a retailer one time that was selling some of your cigars, and he did have the audacity to tell me that he felt that if there was one person that had said the word kudzu more than you, it was him. And I kind of took exception to that. And I probably overreacted, to be honest, but I took exception to it. And I said, I don't know Robert very well, but I know Robert is a tenacious businessman, and he has spent a lot of time and a lot of effort, a lot of travel, and networked the heck out of his business to know that he has probably said that word about 20 times more than you. And he was kind of taken aback by it as well. We kind of went at it a little bit. But in the end, we kind of shook hands and agreed to disagree a little bit on it as well. But it was one of those funny stories that I wanted to mention tonight, because I did think it was funny that someone could claim to tout that you're a line more than you, considering the amount of effort and love and passion. Joe D, I used that word as well. He mentioned that word earlier in the chat, as much as you have. So going into that, though, we talk about passion and we talk about the future of this industry and the future of your business. This has been a turbulent year, not necessarily for just Southern Draw, but for a lot of companies and for the industry itself. The organization that represents this premium cigar industry, the PCA, has, before COVID-19 was even part of our daily vocabulary, 2020 has been rough for PCA. It started with the quote unquote big four pulling out of the trade show. And then of course the uncertainty of the trade show and everything. So when the cancellation of this year's trade show came down, Robert, again, you had already made the decision to forego in-person events. Before that decision was made, was your intent to still attend this year, or were you going to pull back from that as well?
Well, when we made the decision, it was final and it was firm, and it was all in-person events for the 4 reasons I mentioned earlier. So we not reneged on that position, and we would have paid the consequences, of course. And we wouldn't have hurt our feelings if the industry proceeded and the trade show took place, because a lot of brands rely on that for their annual sales. A big portion of it, and a lot of retailers, it's the only time of the year they get out of their shops. They live there, they work there, and it's great for their social and their interaction. They save their money, they save their coins, and they bring it and they buy big and they support. So, we would have missed that, but we would have been healthy and we would have been safe, and we would have still offered our deals and our specials, and we would have done everything we could to keep our product on the shelves, but we would not in any way have reneged on it, no matter what happened with the trade show.
So when the news finally did come down, I'm assuming you had a conversation with the PCA prior to this. When you made that announcement, you probably had the discussions with them. How did they, did you, or am I just assuming something there?
No, I didn't, because we copied them as well as we did everybody else in the media on it. So, I don't think it's, first of all, we're kind of a one-stop like town, right? We're small, we're nothing in the realm of things, in the realm of what pays for the trade show and the association, right? We're small potatoes, and I wouldn't expect that they would care whether we showed up or not. But the reality of it is, PCA as a trade show and a convention was no more important to me than not going to Mina's Cigar Lounge in Baltimore, Maryland, or going to the Tinderbox in Salt Lake City. Every event, every interaction had to carry the same weight for us to make that decision, Bear. Otherwise, it's unfair and it's biased, and I don't want to ever be considered a brand that's biased based on, we only have friends that have money, we only have friends that have boats, we only have friends that have these things that we have all lost. We've learned our lesson. Our lesson is appreciate everybody equally, because at the end of the day, no matter how this pie is split, a piece is a piece, no matter how big it is, but the pie is what we've got to worry about. So we wouldn't have reneged on it, and we didn't really get any feedback. But, for me, the trade show, you got to make a decision a year in advance. You got to try to secure your booth. You got to start building your booth. You got to put a lot of capital into it. When we made a decision to not do in-person events and to do big discounts on everything we had in stock, that means our cash flow is gone, right? It means all of those extra pieces of expendable income have to be put into giving discounts during a very tough time. So we had to assume that the trade show was the same as any other event. We could not do it and be fair to everyone. So, it was a tough decision to make. It was an early decision to make, but we didn't go for it on 4th down, and I don't think we would have done it any other way.
So when the news finally did come down, was it, from where you sat, was it something you saw as to be expected, or because you had made this decision so early on, it didn't really affect you one way or another?
Well, I don't want to sound ignorant, but it didn't surprise me. I expected it. I expected it much earlier, But, you know, we had,
as we all did.
you know, we feedback between media and retailers and consumers on social media. And, you know, I said, listen, I'm not in the know here, but I've been in business long enough to know what contractual obligations are. I've also got simplicity behind me, right? I canceled 37 flights on American Airlines in March for the year of big events, right? And then in May, the balance of that. And for the majority of those, because I canceled them, Bear, I got credit, but I didn't get my money back. Only one flight did the airlines cancel because of COVID, which means I got a refund. Now let's take that into a trade show contract for the major convention space in the largest convention city in the world. And as an organization, if you're the one that cancels first, tell me the financial implications, the contractual implications. So my belief was that the PCA had to do what they had to do. They had to wait for Las Vegas to be shut down for them to have made a decision. Otherwise, I feel like the financial burden and the onus would have been on the association as a whole. And I think probably the decision was smart to wait until Vegas was impacted and started making decisions for their own convention and travel and safety as well. Because if you're the one that cancels, typically you don't get your money back. You might get some credit. And I don't think the association could survive that, in my opinion. And I know I couldn't, you know, I couldn't just hope that the PCA gives me credit for 20 or 30 or 40,000 next year. I need the cash flow this year. So I wasn't surprised, and I wasn't surprised by the delay, because I think we're not all privy to the contractual obligations and the timing. And I think they probably played it much smarter than most of us give them credit for.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. So you know, going into the next major piece of news that happened from the industry. So when the trades organization PCA announced that the staff would be furloughed, including at the time, and he's since been reinstated along with their executive counsel, Joshua Barsky. Scott Pierce was also furloughed as well for a very, very short time. When those furloughs were first announced and you saw that, what was your take on that?
Well, I think the day I was doing it, I was sitting outside the RV having a cigar, and I think I was on a Zoom show, and I think the question was asked, and when I read it, my question was really this: were the furloughs a result of, especially when you're in a lobby organization or a trade organization, for not accomplishing a mission, or was it purely financial, given the situation where now all the dues and all the funds that would be generated from the trade show may not be in the budgets, so we got to do it for financial reasons? So I don't know the answer to that, but I think being reinstated makes some sense. But if you have a lobbyist and they're not meeting the objectives, typically you furlough or you don't renew their contract. So that could always be a possibility. Now, let's fast forward the days that came after the furlough announcement. I saw a lot of bad press. I saw a lot of bad feedback about PCA and them not accomplishing certain things for this industry as a whole, and the CRA. And, you know, I read it and I listened to it, but the reality of it is, Bear, we've had a couple of small victories. They're not wins, but they're small victories based on a lot of their effort, a lot of their commitment, whether it comes from the most recent on the warning labels, or it comes to substantial equivalence date and kind of, you know, restarting that. They gave us some breathing room where, in fact, a lot of this industry could have been put on their knees this year easily, and most of us probably wouldn't have recovered for financial reasons, no matter how well we planned. So I think we need them. I do think that they have their challenges. We've all talked about it, but we cannot discount the amount of impact they've had in these recent couple of little victories that we've seen. And I call a delay in substantial equivalence a victory. And I certainly call warning labels and preserving, at least for now, the sacred right to our advertising and marketing and branding of our products on our cigar boxes and bands. I call that a major victory. That we're not whitewashing our products and our art. Our brand is not very artful, but there are brands that are built on the passion of art, right? Look at Drew Estate, look at Foundation. You know, these brands the art is their brand, right? So, you know, I hate to see furloughs, but here's the thing, Bear. The other day, I saw a media release. The University of Utah furloughs 100% of their athletic department. Well, we're very close to the University of Utah. We're big supporters. We lived there for quite some time. We've got Courtney, that's part of the Southern Draw family, is a Crimson Club, a big donor. He donates and sponsors student athletes. And he said, don't believe everything you read, because furlough could really truly mean an interim while they readdress budgets, reallocate funds, reassess the situation. And I think they probably did the right thing. In the end, we won't know, because they're missing out a lot of money this year. They lost big four sponsors even before that, right? I wish I won the lottery and I could write a much bigger check, but I think we all need the organizations. And I think, yes, all organizations have problems and issues, but I can tell you, I certainly appreciate the work that's been done, and the results that we've seen in the last few months seem to be a little bit of an example, or a little bit of a reprieve from a lot of people's thoughts and concerns about those organizations. I think they've done something good for us.
No, I agree. The PCA, in particular, I've applauded Scott Pierce, the director of PCA, a number of times, that he has a very, very hard job, and he's done a good job. And I told Scott himself on this show, in fact, I said, you haven't done a great job, because a great would constitute total victories on all accounts, and just utopia, as it were, and that hasn't been accomplished. And so I can't say that you've done a great job, but he certainly has done a good job, and I said that to his face, so I don't mind repeating it again. But you mentioned some other organizations in its general context. So I have a couple more questions before we get to our last question tonight, Robert. And I want to take this opportunity again to thank you for all the time that you've given me tonight, and with our audience as well. It's just been amazing to sit down with you and kind of rekindle and revisit a lot of what we've missed, and what we may have even talked about on our previous take on Take 58. But the organizations that I'm referring to, you participated for the first time, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the TPE trade show earlier this year, before all this madness started. And TPE for 2021 certainly had the momentum going for it, considering the cancellation of the trade show and everything. Well, now they've postponed TPE until May of 2021, which puts it within just a couple of months of the schedule of PCA 2021. So this is a two-part question, Robert. One, do you think either trade show actually happens? And two, will Southern Draw be at one or both, as it's planned today on September 13th, 2020? Will you be there at both shows?
Great questions. And I've said this since the follow-up discussions after TPE of 2020. I don't think, little did we know, the people that attended would be the only trade show we got this year where we could spend some time, even though it was limited in limited space. It was a very productive, it was a wonderful time. We found the media to be more relaxed, less stressed about getting to all their interviews and shows, but we got to do a lunch with the family. We got to spend good quality time with our again, brothers and sisters, in the industry, other factories and brands, and we were all close, close proximity. So I wouldn't trade that for the world. I think that them moving it to May has as much to do with current travel restrictions. I can tell you this, try to be a factory or a brand owner coming from Honduras, DR, and Nicaragua, where their factories have been shut down for long periods of time. Travel's been interrupted. We can't get cargo out for a lot of cases. Why risk everything when that's only a few short months away, when we don't even have a travel ban restriction lifted yet? We don't even know when that's going to happen. So May, to answer your question, May is still a concern, but it's less a concern than it would be if it was January, right? Mm-hmm. The country gets to respond. We get through an election year. Hopefully we get the vaccine. We start seeing some results. Nobody, I don't think, is going to line up out the door to take a COVID vaccine until we have some feedback. I know I certainly wouldn't. But it gives us an extra 5 months to really look at how we can all interact and do business. And maybe it gives us time to, for those people that can attend, to participate virtually in some technological way that they're still part of it. So brilliant plan. The shorter answer is, of part two is, we found the TPE to be a great break in the wintertime, a great opportunity to go to Las Vegas, and we have a lot of family in California and Vegas. So for us, it's an ideal spot. May is very pleasant, I think, for the most part there, but we do plan to attend. We do plan to do it in a very minimal footprint. We like the fact that TP offered us a way to share space with other brands, to get to spend time with other brand owners, to pick brains, to support one another, try to weasel some cigars from them as well, you know. And I think the people that went last year are going to show up, including us, because I think it was a great experience. It was a pleasant experience. It's not a huge sale event. Not every retailer has their budgets replenished from the annual trade show, but tell me this, will there be a pent-up demand for product from the retailers that have been locked in their shops for, at that point, about 15 months, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be good. Now, if PCA continues into July of next year, do we plan on being there? We do. As a rule of thumb, we do not turn down opportunities to spend time with our retailers and the media. And yes, it's costly, but we'll probably scale down a little bit. We've learned that we don't need as much space as we think we do. We need a place to sit down and have a conversation and a cigar, but we will support the organization. We will try to get our family there to spend time with us, and we will take advantage of that time to share something new and fresh and give people a reason to come by and spend some time with us. So we would plan on being at both of those if they are executed in May and July of next year.
That's great to hear. That's absolutely great to hear. So another organization that we were talking about a little bit before we went live tonight, Robert, and it's an organization that I know that you support and have been a part of in different facets, and that, of course, is Cigar Rights of America, CRA. And it was announced earlier this year that the beloved director of CRA, Glenn Loop, who's been a staple at the head of the organization for many, many years. I mean, much longer than anyone would probably have anticipated in a vacuum if they had looked at the organization in its genesis. And he has done again a good job. It's a hard job, but he's done a good job over the years. And he's stepping down after this year's election come November. Now, the one thing lacking from that decision is that there has been no decision as of yet to appoint a successor to Glenn. And from where I sit now, I'm not putting words in your mouth, Robert. I'll ask for a comment in a moment. But from where I sit, that is of great concern to me, because the CRA's tireless work has been very important to this industry. And the board is still in place. The board isn't going anywhere. They'll continue to fight, and they will continue to work as hard as they have in the past and everything. But are you concerned at all about the fact that a successor hasn't been appointed?
I'm not as concerned, because I do have confidence in what they're doing and how they're doing it. I'm not saying I agree with everything, and lobbying world is difficult in itself. Trade organizations are very difficult because sometimes people that are paying dues see how the business is done. They don't agree with everything, but it's hard to argue these recent successes to say they didn't participate and have an impact, positive impact on it, and that they won't continue to do that. So we have to believe that. I would assume that any organization at that level that has a person in a key capacity like Glenn Loop has a succession plan, that they're doing some mirroring, some shadowing, that there's some OJT, that there's some transition. That's a lot of baby kissing and handshaking, man. So ultimately, and I know it's tough, but I think if it wasn't 2020 and we didn't have all these travel restrictions and we didn't have all the cancellation of trade shows and major sales events that he would normally show up at, he would show up at Cigar Fest, and he would show up at, Smoke in the Carolinas. He would smoke up at, in Tampa at the Tampa Cigar Bash. He would be at all these things. If we had all those, would we see Glenn's successor with him? And my true heartfelt thought is we probably would already know who that is if we were doing business the way we normally do it. Now, behind the scenes, I'm sure they have a succession plan, and I'm sure it's going to be a wise decision, and there's going to be people that love and hate. But ultimately, the one thing we have to do is we have to get behind, we have to support, we have to continue the fight, and we got to give until it's uncomfortable for ourselves. We got to put ourselves into that, because the alternative is many of us may or may not make it through. We already have enough challenges to be in this industry, but we need CRA, we need PCA, we need TP. Do we need them all together? Do we need them all separate? I don't know. But I can tell you this, they all have had an impact on our brand and our business and our success and our sustainability thus far. And we would like to see somebody with the right personality, with the right level of energy, the right level of commitment. And I'm just certain that Glenn and CRA have found out who that person is, and at the right time, they're going to disclose who that is. And, you know, you don't usually want to name a new coach in the middle of a season. He's told you the end of his season. He's told you when he's going to last represent CRA. And why would you come out and share who the next head coach is when he's still got to lead the team for this period of time and a very important time in our industry? So I think session plan, I think they're doing the right thing by not complicating it. And I want him to get the full respect to do the job he needs to do until that moment that is his last day. And at that point, I think you'll see him standing side by side, you know, handing off the mic, doing the inauguration, if you will. And I think we'll be in good hands.
You know, that is probably the best answer that I've gotten to that question, one that I couldn't even answer myself, Robert. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. I think that's a brilliant point, and I think that that's if that is the route that they are going, that then it is to be commended. I think that is something that they in hindsight, being 2020 that it is, no pun intended with this year, that it's been, it will be the right decision kind of going forward. So again, Robert, thank you so much for your time tonight. And I want to move into our last question, which of course is always our curveball question. And so we talked a little bit about your first Lustrum this earlier in the show. And we talked about, but something we didn't talk about was the sit down that you and Sharon had at the very beginning to decide what the next move was. You talked about the hard discussion that it was, and the way that she pulled no punches as she talked to you about the person that you were and what the person that she wanted you to be going forward, and how you guys decided to move forward as a family, which again, a fantastic story. And you guys ultimately decided on the cigar industry. Not an easy choice to make, considering the age-old joke: if you want to make $1 million in this business, you need to start with 3. But you had, I'm sure, other choices. And if we're talking in a vacuum, I mean, the world was your oyster. I mean, there's any number of things that you could have chosen. But my question to you is this: do you think that there is any other industry that you would have allowed you and Sharon to accomplish what you have accomplished with Southern Draw? And the second part of that question, what would it have been?
Well, it's really going to be a one-part question, because I can tell you emphatically that there was not another vehicle that we had knowledge or exposure or had seen the evidence of other than premium cigars. Premium cigars that allow us to celebrate, premium cigars that allow us to grieve, premium cigars that allow us to really appreciate an art form that is artful as blues, jazz, the Sistine Chapel, in my opinion. A premium art form that evolves and allows us to be creative in our own right by harnessing the skills and resources of so many people. And ultimately, when you sell a product, being able to distribute those funds back into everybody that played a role. I don't think there's building houses and shopping malls, the finest cars, automobiles. It doesn't take this many people to accomplish anything, because everything's automated. We're in a time when handmade products, when farming and agriculture is being replaced by so much industry. And this is the vehicle that chose us. Whether we chose it, it chose us. And then at the end of the day, Bear, we get to take these, again, tightly rolled bundles of tobacco, and we get to sit down and have a conversation. We get to learn about each other. We get to be honest. We get to be equal. And we get to learn something that no other vehicle would give us this time. It wouldn't afford us the time to share and to be open, whether it's with one person or it's with the masses or it's with ourselves, right? In our own moments together to reflect. I don't think there's another tool in the world, another vehicle in the world that would let us accomplish this. And the fact that I didn't think about it earlier really plagues me, because, of course, I was after the brass ring, and I was, always bigger, better, faster, more toys. And the reality of it is, she reminded me, I never asked for any of that. You grew up with nothing. You grew up poor. You grew up with lots of brothers and sisters in a very, trying time. And ultimately, once you had some success, you wanted more success. And with that comes the toys, right? But man, I tell you, there's people in this industry that are tremendously successful in life, that have tremendous wealth, and they too chose the path of the premium cigar. They chose, and I'll say this, people like Rocky, people like Mike and Skip over at Roma, they chose to put their resources behind people that have a passion that they can help, and then they could wrap their arms around and embrace them and give them an opportunity in the world. I tell you, I don't think there's another product or another industry in the world that allows this many people's lives to be impacted, from the growing to the production to the smoking to the life that we affect after the fact. My wife says it all the time. We get to do what we do because of you. And it's true. It's true that where else could we ever sit down and have the conversation, impact on people's lives, than if we just took the time to smoke a cigar? You can't drink that much. I tried that. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. To provide fellowship and to provide a window of opportunity to really learn about one another cannot be accomplished in any other way, in my opinion. Food is a great way to do it. Music is a great way, but you can't talk over the music, and you can't talk when your belly's full because you're taking a nap. Over a cigar, you got unlimited amount of time to explore and learn, and I tell you, I wouldn't have done it any other way.
Fair enough. Awesome. Well, Robert, again, I can't thank you enough for your time this evening, for the time that you've afforded me and my audience to learn a little bit more about where you came from, where you're going, and what the future of Southern Draw has. So again, it's been an absolute privilege for me to sit down with you tonight and discuss some of those plans and some of those amazing past stories as well. So as always, I like to take this time to thank our audience for tuning in tonight. If you are tuning in on Facebook, be sure to go to our Facebook page, ELOSOFUMAR, and like that page, and check out a calendar of upcoming guests as well. We're really excited to have amazing guests like Robert, who do afford their time and sit down with us. Next week, we'll be sitting down with McAuliffe Cigars, represented by Dan Thompson and Andy Yaffe. And Laurel Tilley of Macanudo will be on the following week. We have some amazing guests lined up after that as well, and those details will be coming shortly. So stay tuned on our Facebook page. Go to ELOSOFUMAR and like that page. You can also check out our YouTube page by the same name, ELOSOFUMAR, and check out previous videos, including Take 58, where Robert graced us with his first visit and sit down with us. And if you are listening to us later, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts, we encourage you to download, subscribe, and review. If you already are a subscriber, I encourage you to unsubscribe, but please don't forget to resubscribe. That really helps my numbers, and my numbers are good because I have amazing guests like our esteemed guest Robert Holt this evening, and we want to continue to bring you amazing guests like him each and every single week. So we ask that you continue to do that as well. For you guys interested, yes, we will be celebrating our 3rd anniversary come November on ELOSOFUMARTAKES, and as always, Tim Wong of Pier 28 Cigars will be making an appearance. He was my very first take and has been on my anniversary show ever since, and will continue to be as long as he wants to be. And he's decided to join us again for our 3rd year anniversary show. That will be on November 8th. And again, thank you for everyone out there for all your participation, all your comments, all your likes, all your shares. We really do appreciate it. My name is Bear Duplessis, live from the HF Barcelona studios of Euless, Texas. This was our 136th take. He's Robert Holt of Southern Draw Cigars. And guess what, everyone? We'll see you next time.